Hello, so how do you display numbers and lists on your front end? So in the past, when I had to display things like numbers or displayed lists, I would just use the markup language and display the particular number. And when it came to lists, I would do a join dot comma. And that became a bit awkward when it's a list of, three things, and for the last thing you have a comma. It looks a bit kind of lame, right? And when it comes to numbers, you should have lots of zeros. It works with really small numbers. You want to display them, but if you have lots of zeros, it can get really hard to read. So you want to add commas. And you could do that via code. For the list example, you just look for the last element at the end, or what about if you need an or is there a comma at the very end? And same with numbers too, right? You can just group them into, if you've got lots of zeros, you group the three zeros and you add a comma in between. But what happens if you have different locales? So I speak English. I'm from New Zealand, so I speak New Zealand English, I guess. And we have, zeros like this, like we have displayed on the screen here. But what about in India or in Hindi languages where I think they use Crow or Lak, and they do separation of two zeros? Or in kind of Russian languages or where they display things in Russian, they don't use commas at all. They have I guess, a white space. Same with lists. In English, we use the word and, or if we want to doing separate mutually exclusive options, we would say or. But in different languages, that's going to change. You're not going to have an and in a different language that's not English. So how do we account for this? Now, there's a really cool way to do it in Node/the browser, and it's called, if I can get the web page up, it's the Internationalization API, which I think is really cool. I discovered it recently, and I've been starting to use it in all my projects. It takes into account locale, and it also has custom styling that allows you to, I'll make it bigger, it allows you to format things in particular ways, like if you want to make things long, short, small, and things like that. And I'll go through some examples with you. Awesome. So the code implementation is quite simple. If I just boot up Node, and what I'll do is I'll create a number. So let's say we've got, 1,000 to make it nice and simple. And there's ways we can display it. I'll display it in terminal. It's just going to print out the same as if it were in the front end. So let's come up with, I'll make it a bit bigger, is we will do new and INTL. So it's as simple as this, new INTL number format. And I'll put a new there. And you can enter in your particular locale. So we'll do ENNZ. We can just close that there and then go format in, which is our number. So basically you can declare this and use it in other places, or we can put it into a function and then you just call format on your number. So you can see I've got my nice displayed number as a string with a comma. What about different locales? So you can provide different locale here. So we'll do Russian, for example, and we have our different locale displayed here. So that's really simple. I think it's really cool. Awesome. Another example I think is really cool is currency and units. So let me just demonstrate that real quickly. You can see here, I've got my locale set as English New Zealand, and I've got the currency as New Zealand dollars, and we print off New Zealand dollars. Now, the really cool bit is if I change the locale, it will make the currency specific to that URL. Let me just show you. So in the example here, I've changed the locale to US, and now it's giving me the dollar value in the New Zealand currency. So that's really good if you want to display currencies and different currencies. And you've got different locale switching as well. So I think that's just really cool. That's being built into Node/the browser. Now let's go to implementation with not only just numbers, currencies, but units as well, which I think is so awesome. Cool. Here we've got an example of 1,000 megabytes being printed into screen. What we can also do is change the unit, or how the unit is displayed. So I provided a long kind of format for that unit, and it provides 7,000 MB, or do 1,000 megabytes. Now let's look at an example with lists, which we talked about before. Cool, so I've displayed my list of 3 letters, and I'll show you the way that I used to do displaying lists. It kind of works, but it's not that great, right? You want to have that and or at the very end. So I'll show that how that works. And you can see here we're using, instead of number format, we're using list format. And there we go, we get A, B, and C. You can pass a type through called disjunctive. So I think this by default is conjunctive, that's why you get the and. If you do disjunctive, it'll do the A, B, or C. What I can also demonstrate is changing the language. So if we change it to, for example, let's do Spanish. It'll give me A, B, or C. If we change this to conjunction, it should give me A, B, E, C, which I think is pretty cool. What I'll do is also link a blog post down below in the description. And what this has is it has interactive, basically what I've explained here, but also interactive examples of how things work. So I've got an example here where you can change the locale. So for example, we go to RU and that changes, I think this is the Google, it changes it into kind of how we display in Russian. You can also obviously change the numbers here as well, if you please. And we can do things like, and change the notation to scientific if you want to do exponential as well. So if we scroll down a bit more, you'll have an example of you can provide different locale, and you can do different types of destructive or constructive with your list formats. So I've got here, and you can also make things narrow, long, see how things change if they do. And finally, the bonus. So thanks for getting this far into the video. You can do date ranges, which I think is really cool. So here I've got an example of 2 dates, and what I'll do is I'll provide, well, it's actually the same date, so I'll provide a different date here. So I'll go first here, I'll change this to 24. So you can also see here it does the range. And the thing that's really cool is if the month and the year are the same, it won't give you 2 separate dates. So I think if I change this to full, you'll get the kind of, that's really cool how you get the dates, but it won't duplicate the month and year, which I think is such a fine detail, and I love it. But if I increase the year here, let's say we go 2028, different month, you'll see that now we've got the full date being shown because those things are different. So if I just change it to short, or even medium, you see that it includes all the dates there, which I think, once again, is really cool. So thank you for getting this far into the video. I really hope that this is a good tip that helps you out. I don't know, I like making these small tips. It's not really complicated. But it's better off than writing your own, join with a comma space, or just displaying the numbers, which are hard to read, especially when you're writing applications that should be kind of for everyone. It's a globalized application. You want to be able to account for things like locale, different locations, and that's all built in for you thanks to this module here. And if you go to the MDM documentation, there's more provided there. It has more things about date ranges, date formats. There's so much here I've not even covered. So what locales you can use, all things like that. And I think it's just so cool it's built into the browser. So if you have any tips or any tricks for me, let me know down in the comments. Other than that, have a nice day and happy coding.